Salam sejahtera, anda bersama saya Rozman dan ini Niaga AWANI. Seperti biasa jam ini kami akan bawakan pelbagai perkembangan terkini niaga dan ekonomi dari tempatan hingga ke antarabangsa dan antara kejayaan pelaksanaan pelan pembangunan pelbagai jangka masa semenjak awal tempoh kemerdekaan negara telah membawa perubahan besar dalam sistem ekonomi. Malaysia melonjak daripada sebuah ekonomi berasaskan pertanian kepada perindustrian dan seterusnya bertransformasi sebagai ekonomi berasaskan perkhidmatan. Dari perspektif dasar, pendekatan diversifikasi pengeluaran oleh sektor ekonomi merupakan faktor utama yang menerangkan lonjakan dan transformasi dalam sistem ekonomi negara. Namun di sebalik kejayaan ini, wujud persoalan penting mengenai impak pembangunan yang dikecapi kepada golongan pekerja. Data keluaran dalam negara kasar KDNK menunjukkan sumbangan pertumbuhan KDNK kepada bahagian pampasan pekerja masih berada jauh di bawah paras 40% iaitu sasaran yang ditetapkan dalam rancangan Malaysia ke-12 RMK ke-12. Dengan tempoh RMK ke-12 berbakikan 2 tahun lagi, persoalan demi persoalan mulai timbul mengenai hala tuju sasaran pencapaian 40% bahagian pampasan pekerja. Dan dah bersedia untuk mengulas lebih lanjut, kita mempersilakan tetamu kita Dr. Syakrin Utit, merupakan pensyarah kanan Sekolah Perniagaan dan Ekonomi SPE UPM. Saya nak ucapkan terima kasih Doktor kerana sudi meluangkan masa bersama kami. Daripada introduction saya tadi, mungkin Doktor boleh kongsikan apakah antara isu utama berkaitan dengan bahagian pampasan pekerja ini dan kita nak lihat sejauh manakah isu ini diberikan perhatian dalam KSP RMK ke-12 dan juga Belanjawan 2024 yang telah dibentangkan baru-baru ini.
Okey, terima kasih Nina. Bagi saya, isu bahagian pampasan kerja adalah isu yang berkait dengan bahagian kek ekonomi. Yang mana kalau kita lihat dalam bahagian kek ekonomi ini, ia merangkumi bahagian untuk golongan pekerja, golongan pemodal dan juga pihak kerajaan. Dan berdasarkan trend pertumbuhan ekonomi ada tahun 2015 hinggalah tahun 2022, saiz bahagian kek untuk golongan pekerja kita lihat tidak banyak berubah. Dengan purata bahagian pampasan pekerja boleh dianggarkan sekitar 35% sahaja. Dan ini bermaksud kalau KDNK bertumbuh RM1, cuma 35 sen sahaja yang akan dirasai oleh golongan pekerja. Dan begini, pada tahun 2022, saiz bahagian kek untuk golongan pekerja dianggarkan sekitar 32.4%, yang mana lebih kecil daripada nilai purata. Dan situasi ini sebenarnya menjadikan jurang antara sasaran 40% bahagian pampasan kerja itu dengan pencapaian semasa semakin melebar. Pada 2022, jurang kita anggarkan sekitar 7.6% dan jika nak dibandingkan dengan tahun 2021, jurangnya cuma 4.9% sahaja. Kalau kita nak lihat pula kepada faktor yang mana mendorong kepada pelebaran jurang itu, kita yang paling utama saya rasa adalah perkembangan di tingkat global. Contohnya sekarang ini kita ada gangguan ataupun konflik ketegangan geopolitik yang mana konflik-konflik itu membawa kepada gangguan rantaian perbekalan global. Sebagai contoh, kita ada konflik antara Rusia dan Ukraine dan kita juga sekarang berhadapan dengan konflik Palestin dan Israel. Walaupun kita nampak konflik-konflik ini berpusat jauh ribuan batu daripada Malaysia, sebenarnya kesan memang Malaysia akan rasai juga melalui saluran perdagangan. Ini disebabkan Malaysia kita merupakan sebuah negara yang kecil dan kita juga mengamalkan sistem ekonomi terbuka dan kita memangnya berdagang dengan hampir semua negara di dunia. Dalam konteks jangka sederhana, mestinya kerajaan mereka akan melihat setiap isu dan juga cabaran yang berkaitan dengan pertumbuhan ekonomi. Dan disebabkan itu dalam rancangan Malaysia ke-12, isu yang berkaitan dengan bahagian pampasan kerja ini diberikan perhatian langsung melalui usaha seperti menangani ketidakpadanan bakat dan juga lonjakan produktiviti. Manakala dalam jangka pendek pula, Belanjawan 2024 ini, isu ini dilihat lebih daripada perspektif makro dengan tumpuan kepada proses rombakan struktur ekonomi.
Jadi setentu kita mahu sebagai pekerja, kita mahu pampasan yang betul dan untuk kita atasi isu bahagian pampasan pekerja ni, apakah pendekatan yang bersifat makro seperti yang diketengahkan dalam Belanjawan 2024 yang kita boleh cakap berkesan untuk atasi masalah ini? Seperti contoh, saya sebagai pekerja, apakah pampasan yang kita boleh cakap yang sesuai dan puas hati untuk kita dapat ataupun jana daripada pendapatan KDNK ini?
Setakat ini sasarannya adalah 40%. Tapi kalau kita lihat dalam Belanjawan 2024 ini, memang Belanjawan tidak melihat pada isu ini secara langsung, tapi melihat daripada perspektif makro. Tapi bagi saya, walaupun melihat daripada perspektif makro, ini bukan satu masalah. Sebab dalam jangka pendek, sasaran yang diletakkan oleh kerajaan lebih kepada untuk melihat kelangsungan ekonomi dan juga menjana penumbuhan. Dan sebenarnya kalau kita lihat contoh negara lain sekalipun, mereka mengamalkan menggunakan pendekatan yang sama. Kalau keutamaan tidak diberikan kepada usaha merangsang tumbuhan ekonomi, sudah tentu asas ekonomi akan melemah. Dan bila asas ekonomi melemah, kita akan ada masalah berkaitan dengan pertumbuhan seperti pengangguran, yang mana isu ini juga akan menjadi semakin ketara. Bila isu pengangguran semakin ketara, sudah tentu ia juga akan mempengaruhi isu bahagian pampasan pekerja, yang mana ia juga akan jadi lebih parah. Jadi apabila kita ada asas ekonomi yang kukuh dalam jangka pendek, Malaysia kita akan dapat tingkatkan imej kita sebagai destinasi pelaburan yang menarik pada para pelabur. Dan bila ada pelaburan kualiti, sudah tentu lebih banyak peluang pekerjaan, terutamanya dalam kategori mahir dan juga separuh mahir akan dapat diwujudkan. Ini seterusnya akan membantu untuk tingkatkan bahagian pampasan kerja kepada 40% dan juga tingkatkan kuasa beli rakyat. Yang lebih penting bagi saya dalam jangka pendek, pendekatan makro bukan sekadar disasar untuk selesaikan isu pampasan kerja saja, tapi juga melibatkan isu-isu lain. Sebab sekarang kita ada isu seperti kejatuhan nilai ringgit, inflasi dan juga hutang negara. Jadi selain daripada aspek keutamaan semasa, kewajaran penggunaan pendekatan makro juga sebenarnya terletak pada faktor industri. Bagi industri berlainan, sudah tentu ada faktor khusus yang mempengaruhi tinggi atau rendah bahagian pampasan kerja. Sebagai contoh, dalam industri sawit, ia lebih berkait dengan faktor sekatan ekspor dalam kalangan negara Eropah. Jadi keseluruhannya, pendekatan makro sebenarnya dalam jangka pendek ni dia lebih berperanan sebagai langkah kawalan sebelum tindakan yang lebih agresif boleh diambil untuk selesaikan isu-isu yang ada, terutamanya bagi isu bahagian pampasan kerja ini.
Jadi Dr. Cangkar, apa sebenarnya jentis pampasan yang boleh kita teliti? Naik gaji ke, ataupun naik jawatan ke, ataupun tingkatkan benefit, bagaimana?
Okey, so kalau kita lihat dalam perspektif masa, salah satu model yang terbaik adalah model gaji progresif. Tapi kalau kita nak lihat semula dalam konteks Belanjawan 2024 ni, gaji progresif tidak disentuh disebabkan bagi saya ada perkara-perkara lain yang kerajaan perlu teliti betul-betul, perlu perhatikan secara mendalam. Dan perkara yang paling utama adalah berkaitan dengan kesediaan perusahaan perniagaan untuk mereka terapkan sistem gaji progresif. Dan kesediaan yang saya maksudkan termasuklah daripada perspektif pemahaman terhadap sistem gaji progresif dan juga keadaan ekonomi perusahaan perniagaan. Bagi perusahaan bersaiz besar mungkin mereka bersedia, tapi bagaimana pula dengan perusahaan yang bersaiz mikro, kecil dan sederhana iaitu PMKS? Kita kena ingat yang PMKS di Malaysia mereka mewakili lebih daripada 98% pertumbuhan perniagaan berdaftar. Selain itu, kalau perusahaan bersaiz besar, mereka ada sumber manusia yang cukup untuk kendalikan perihal operasi dan juga kewangan. Bagaimana pula dengan PMKS? Kalau kita tengok PMKS di Malaysia, rata-rata adalah bersaiz mikro, lebih daripada 70% bersaiz mikro dan mereka punya pekerja kurang daripada 5 orang. Daripada sudut yang lain, sebahagian PMKS yang ada ketika ini juga merupakan perusahaan yang kita boleh kata baru muncul selepas gelombang pandemik, yang mana usia mereka kurang daripada 3 tahun. Jadi dengan usia 3 tahun, kita boleh jangka sejauh mana keadaan kewangan mereka mampu untuk berhadapan dengan sistem gaji progresif. Jadi saranan saya, sebelum sistem ini dilaksanakan, semua pihak berkepentingan termasuklah industri dan juga golongan pekerja, mereka perlu diberikan pendedahan sebaiknya oleh pihak kerajaan. Terutamanya mengenai manfaat jangka panjang sistem gaji progresif. Kerajaan kena pastikan yang industri betul-betul faham yang sistem ini tidak akan membebankan mereka, manakala daripada sudut golongan pekerja pula mereka kena faham yang mereka akan dibayar setimpal dengan sumbangan mereka. Bagi saya, sistem ini adalah kita boleh kata sebagai sistem menang-menang pada pekerja dan juga majikan.
Dan bergerak ke hadapan, kita berharap 40% itu dapat direalisasikan di bahagian pampasan pekerja sekaligus untuk rakyat dapat nikmati, iaitu angka ataupun erti KDNK. Sekali lagi saya nak ucapkan terima kasih kepada tetamu kita Dr. Cangkar Utit, merupakan pensyarah Kanan Sekolah Perniagaan dan Ekonomi SPE UPM, dan semua ini akan kami rangkumkan dalam astrawani.com dan semua platform digital Astrawani. Jangan ke mana-mana, kita akan berhenti rehat seketika, kembali selepas ini. Platform jual beli kereta terpakai digital MYTukar menyasarkan jualan sebanyak 6,000 unit kenderaan sebulan masing-masing untuk perniagaan borong dan runcitnya bagi tahun kewangan 2024. Pada September 2023, MYTukar berjaya mencapai jumlah jualan sebanyak 4,300 unit kenderaan kedua-duanya bagi perniagaan borong dan runcit. Ketua Pegawai Eksekutifnya, Derek Ng berkata syarikat itu dijangka mencapai sasaran itu berikutan penjenamaan semula secara berperingkat bengkel perkhidmatan selepas jualannya yang dipanggil karaoke sebagai sebahagian daripada perkongsian strategik dengan Jardine Cycle and Carriage. Ujarnya sasaran pasarannya terdiri daripada pengedar kereta dan pembeli kereta, sementara pusat baik pulih pula akan membolehkan kereta dibaik pulih kepada keadaan sebaik seperti baharu. Ang juga berkata MYTukar sedang bekerjasama dengan 6 syarikat insurans untuk memberikan pilihan insurans yang sesuai pada satu platform. Platform kereta terpakai dalam talian yang berpangkalan di Singapura. Karo, pemilik MYTukar, mempunyai 14 pusat pengubahsuaian dan bengkel di Asia Tenggara yang akan dijenamakan semula kepada Karo Care secara berperingkat mulai tahun depan dengan sebanyak 2,800 kereta dijangka diservis dan dibaiki setiap bulan. Kita akan berhenti rehat seketika, kembali selepas ini.
Bebaskan rambut saya. Ya, lakukannya. Walau apa pun anda lakukan, jangan risau. Sunset baharu dengan vitamin C, minyak argan dan elastin dalam Active Infusion untuk rambut lembut mengurai dengan haruman berpanjangan. Bebaskan rambut cantik anda dengan Sunset baharu.
Itu bukan cara nak nyanyi, adik. Jilat Flexi Vibe, kepala fleksibel. Cukup sekali terus licin. Cukup sekali terus licin, tak kecoh. Jilat Flexi Vibe.
Malaysia's national debt rose to over R1 trillion in 2022, a 10.2% increase in the previous year.
Proton and Chinese car maker Zhejiang Geely Holding Group is looking to set up an electric vehicle factory in Thailand.
Indonesia has again denied that the hazardous haze was crossing borders.
The government is considering reviving the National Service Training Program with youth to undergo army training for 45 days.
Bertemu kembali. ASEAN Investment and Trade Forum 2023 AITF menjadi platform pemudah cara dalam memperkasakan sektor perusahaan mikro, kecil dan sederhana PMKS menerusi kewangan mampan, perundangan serta pertubuhan perniagaan ke pasaran global. Menurut pengerusi kumpulan Westwood, Datuk Seri Jason Chang, AITF 2023 menjadi medium tepat untuk para usahawan mikro mendapatkan pendedahan. Ini termasuk berkenaan pasaran perniagaan global di samping bantu berdepani cabaran asas dalam perniagaan.
We have a lot of SME in Malaysia. I think when SME moving wants to expand, they face the hurdle of knowledge, and the expertise. And I think when you come to the AITF platform, you have all the expertise there because legal framework is there for you. Accountancy framework, company advisory management framework, and also at the same time the VCs and also the asset management company are here as well. So which means that the SME has all the information that they need. They can actually come here, gain more knowledge for themselves before they take that step out of Malaysia. If you are well prepared for your business and you were to go overseas, I think you have a lot better chance to succeed compared to someone that have to go over and find someone for help. At the same time, they do not know their cultural issues, business laws.
Ujarnya lagi, untuk meluaskan perniagaan ke peringkat antarabangsa, ia memerlukan sokongan daripada sudut perundangan, pemahaman budaya serta pembiayaan yang baik dan stabil. Sementara itu, Ketua Pegawai Eksekutif Vijaya International, Kenny Gan berkata, selain isu keuangan, pengusaha PMKS perlu memastikan mereka mempunyai ilmu yang cukup dalam selok-belok perniagaan.
Gain more knowledge because knowledge is the key to expand your business.
And connection also.
Yes,
connections.
Yeah.
And the right connections. Because if you were to, let's say, go to Thailand by yourself, you have to look for the lawyers, your company sex and all, and you don't know who are the good ones. And you come to AITF, everyone is here.
AITF 2023 anjuran You Mazlina and Partners dengan kerjasama SME Corp dan Matrix berlangsung pada 24 hingga 25 Oktober sempena persidangan tahunan Perikatan Undang-Undang ASEAN ke-9 di Setia Spice Convention Centre Pulau Pinang.
ASEAN Investment and Trade Forum AITF 2023 diteruskan untuk hari kedua hari ini. Ia juga merupakan hari terakhir forum yang bakal dipenuhi dengan sesi workshop memberi tumpuan kepada adaptasi kelesiaran dalam PMKS, prospek masa depan untuk ekonomi ASEAN dan keterhubungan antara pelaburan dan sektor kesihatan di ASEAN. Rakan tugas Fahmi Izzuddin yang berada di AITF 2023 di bayan lepas ada perinciannya.
Baik, terima kasih rakan tugas di Pusat Penyiaran Asia Bukit Jalil. Sekarang saya berada di Setia Spice Convention Centre bayan lepas pada hari ini bersempena dengan hari kedua AITF 2023 dan sebelum saya menyentuh apa tumpuan yang akan disajikan pada hari ini, saya nak recap semula apa yang menjadi perhatian semalam di mana kita menyaksikan Majlis Perasmian AITF 2023 dirasmikan oleh Timbalan Ketua Menteri 2 Pulau Pinang iaitu Yang Berhormat Jagdeep Singh dan bagaimana beliau sebenarnya menyentuh forum ini AITF 2023 ini sebenarnya mampu mentransformasi landscape ekonomi Pulau Pinang sebagai salah satu lokasi paling strategik di ASEAN dan semalam juga terdapat perkongsian berkenaan bagaimana pengukuhan kewangan dalam kalangan pemain industri sektor PMKS untuk melebarkan perniagaan mereka ke peringkat antarabangsa dan hari ini 25 Oktober merupakan hari terakhir dan tumpuan yang akan disajikan hari ini termasuklah sesi workshop bersama dengan para pengusaha PMKS yang bakal diberi pendedahan berkenaan dengan bagaimana adaptasi elemen ESG dalam perniagaan mereka. Ini kerana bila kita bercakap tentang sektor PMKS untuk pergi ke peringkat antarabangsa ini bukan hanya faktor kewangan dan pengetahuan sahaja yang menjadi cabaran, malah elemen ESG yang seiring dengan permintaan perniagaan antarabangsa itu juga perlu diberi penekanan dan literasi kelestarian perniagaan mereka itu juga perlu dipertingkatkan. Dan selain itu tumpuan juga terarah kepada memahami keterhubungan antara sektor pelaburan dan kesihatan di ASEAN dan bagaimana sebenarnya sektor kesihatan dapat memacu perkhidmatan yang efisien seiring dengan perkembangan semasa menerusi pelaburan yang mampan dan efektif. Dan saya kira buat masa ini, itu saja antara perkembangan yang dapat saya bawakan di Niaga AWANI pada jam ini. Pastinya perkembangan-perkembangan berkaitan dengan AITF 2023 serta laporannya akan saya bawakan dari semasa ke semasa di seluruh platform Astro AWANI. Kembali pada rakan tugas di Pusat Penyiaran Asia Bukit Jalil.
Baik, sebelum kami berhenti rehat seketika dan kembali bersama rakan tugas Ibrahim Sani untuk bawakan perkembangan seterusnya, kami tinggalkan anda dengan segmen Jiwa SME. 5 tahun menetap di Bintulu, Sarawak menjadikan usahawan Rosie Kitchen meneroka penghasilan produk hiliran daripada hasil tanaman utama negeri itu, ladi hitam. Di sebalik penghasilan produk hiliran ladi hitam kurang diceburi usahawan tempatan, ia sekaligus menjadi peluang istimewa memperluas pasaran rempah adunan Rosie Safari.
Sejak ditubuhkan pada 2015, 7 produk rempah ratus mendapat tempat di bumi Kialang dengan memasuki 5 pasaraya di Sarawak. Antara produknya adalah perapan tanduri, perapan berempah, ladi hitam kisar, ladi hitam nasi Arab mandi dan nasi Arab kapsah. Biarpun kini sudah kembali menetap di Johor sejak 3 tahun lalu, namun penguasaan media sosial termasuk penjualan di platform Shopee, TikTok dan Facebook membuatkan produknya mudah diperoleh.
Pasaran pertama bermula di Johor Bahru. Tapi masa tu baru buatlah. So lepas tu kita berpindah ke Sarawak. Hampir 5 tahun saya duduk sana dan ikut suami berpindah. So saya cuba buat, saya punya ramai peminat punya yang suka kita punya produk. So saya cuba masuk dalam pasaraya. So dekat Sarawak saya ada masuk 5 jenis pasaraya. Saya dah cuba masuk produk saya lah. Dan alhamdulillah semuanya berjaya lah. Sehinggalah saya berpindah balik ke Johor Bahru. Tapi sebelum saya pindah balik Johor Bahru tu, saya ada mohon bantuan daripada Lembaga Ladi Hitam Malaysia. Bermohon di sana tapi alamat di Johor sebab kita tahu kita akan pindah kan. So lepas 2 tahun kita mohon tu baru kita dapat bantuan. Alhamdulillah, terima kasih kepada Lembaga Ladi Hitam Malaysia yang beri kita bantuan mesin dan peralatan lain untuk memudahkan kerja. dan siap semua kertas kerja dan kita hantar borang-borang semua. Dalam 2 tahun tu kita dapat bantuan. Di situ kita mula kembangkan perniagaan kita dengan menjual secara online, offline. Kita hantar pasar raya daripada orang individu, jual secara offline pun ada. Dan jual secara borong. Ada juga customer saya yang beli secara pukal.
Bercerita lanjut, Rozi berkata produknya menggunakan rempah berkualiti dengan teknik sangai iaitu menggoreng tanpa minyak. Ini untuk memastikan bau rempah yang dikisar menjadi lebih segar dan harum. Sama seperti usahawan kecil dan sederhana yang lain, Rozi juga tidak terlepas dari cabaran seperti peningkatan harga bahan mentah.
Cabaran memang harga bahan mentah memang sangat mahal sekarang ni. Berbeza dengan sebelum saya beli dan baru saya beli ni. Berbeza, terutama sekali bahan mentah yang untuk digunakan untuk membuat rempah nasi Arab. Memang sangatlah mahal. Seperti contoh, pelaga, harga dia sekarang sekilo macam 200. Saya terpaksa beli juga sebab itulah bahan utama dalam rempah nasi Arab. Dan juga cengkeh. Cengkeh pun agak mahal, 70-80 sekilo. Dan bahan maya lain pun lebih kurang samalah. Jadi kita terpaksa juga beli dan buat sebab kita dah gunakan resepi itu dah lama, kita tak boleh ubah.
Bagaimanapun, ibu kepada 6 anak ini tetap bersyukur produknya mendapat bantuan Lembaga Lada Malaysia dari segi mesin pengisar, mesin pengadun dan mesin pembungkusan.
Ringgit pulih daripada situasi terlebih jual untuk ditutup tinggi pada Selasa susulan sentimen yang positif berbanding dolar Amerika Syarikat. Dan pada 6 petang, ringgit meningkat kepada 4.7825 berbanding dolar Amerika Syarikat daripada paras penutup 4.7900 pada Isnin atau paras terendahnya berbanding dolar Amerika Syarikat dalam tempoh 25 tahun. Dan Ketua Ekonomi dan Kewangan Sosial Bank Muamalat Malaysia Berhad Dr. Muhammad Azani Sam Abdul Rashid berkata, aktiviti membeli pada harga rendah membayangkan kemungkinan ringgit akan berada dalam aliran meningkat pada masa depan. Dan selain itu, beliau percaya minat terhadap ringgit akan muncul kembali berikutan beberapa perkembangan positif dalam konflik Israel-Hamas. Dan untuk kita lihat bagaimanakah prestasi ringgit pada 25 September setakat jam pagi ini, untuk kita teliti ringgit kita berada pada paras 4.781 dan untuk kita lihat bagaimanakah prestasi ringgit kita dalam tempoh seminggu yang mencapai sehingga ke paras ini, untuk kita lihat daripada lebih kurang 17 hingga 18 Oktober, untuk kita lihat prestasi ringgit kita berada lebih kurang di paras 4.740 ringgit. Untuk anda teliti di sini, ini ringgit kita berada paras pada 18, tapi masuk saja 18 hinggalah 20 Oktober sehinggalah 23 Oktober kita dapat saksikan peningkatan. Peningkatan pada graf ini menunjukkan bahawa ringgit kita berada pada prestasi yang lemah dan menyusut. Sehingga kini ia tetap mencapai trend peningkatan sehingga ia pernah mencapai dalam masa seminggu sehingga 25 Oktober ni, ia pernah mencapai pada paras 4.790 dan prestasi terkini untuk kita lihat prestasi ringgit berada pada paras 4.781 dan ini adalah prestasi ringgit yang kita dapat saksikan dalam tempoh seminggu sehingga ke hari ini, bahawa ringgit kita terus iaitu melemah berbanding dolar Amerika Syarikat. Dan menurut Bank Negara Malaysia, ia berkata pergerakan ringgit ketika ini dipengaruhi terutamanya oleh faktor global dan tidak mencerminkan sebenarnya asas ekonomi negara. Oleh itu, Governor BNM Dato' Abdul Rashid Abdul Ghaffar akan memastikan Bank Pusat melakukan apa yang perlu untuk memastikan ringgit terus diselaraskan dengan secara teratur. Dan ini adalah prestasi ringgit yang dapat saya kongsikan setakat jam pagi ini pada 25 September. Sekian sahaja Niaga Awani pada kali ini. Kita akan beristirahat seketika, kembali selepas ini.
Daripada kita yang sentiasa menyinari hidup yang lain. Ada daripada kita yang hulurkan tangan, berikan masa. Ada daripada kita yang sentiasa turut serta. Walau berbeza, kita duduk semeja. Tiada jurang antara kita. Merealisasi, rezeki bersama. Kongsi idea. Kita raikan perbezaan. Sematkan kesatuan. Kerana bila bersama, kita menggerakkan negara ke puncak dunia.
Macam betul je kan? Cerita sebenarnya lepas pakai helmet, kulit kepala berpeluh dan berminyak. Kalau tak dijaga, rambut boleh gugur. Dove Micellar baharu kini mengandungi vitamin biotin untuk rambut 10 kali lebih kuat.
Saya sayangkan awak. Hai sayang.
Saya rasa saya tak dapat datang malam ni. Saya tahu malam ni sangat-sangat penting bagi awak. Betul, saya tak tipu. Jadi Samira tak jealous ke?
Saya dengan Samira dah putus.
Saya tak sangka apa dia buat macam ni kat saya. Macam mana saya nak start balik hidup saya macam ni? You Haji dah hati kan?
Jamie. Jap, where are you going?
My Famous Ex-Boyfriend, Isnin hingga Kamis 10 malam.
I think I know you. You ex-girlfriend Hang Zuhao kan?
Di Astro dan On Demand.
Thanks for joining me. All right, it's post-budget, and of course, we need to understand a bit more in terms of how some of the governmental agencies are going to roll out their development plans and how it's going to be impacting the most important aspect, I think, which is entrepreneurship and, of course, startups. Joining me in the studio is none other than the acting group CEO of Cradle Fund himself, Norman bin Matthew Van Hakke. Norman, thanks again for taking time to speak with us. Let's do a quick, I guess, roundup in terms of how things are. Cradle has always been a good friend of the show. We've had all of your predecessors on the show, and we've always had this very exciting and robust conversations with them. How are you settling down in Cradle Fund?
I joined Cradle in the year 2020, coming off the back from corporate experience. And I have to say that it has been really exciting being in this a very vibrant and very interactive ecosystem. Why I say that? Because comparing, to corporates, where things are a bit more cold between one another, between the companies, but when it comes to startups, networking, communicating with each other is a very key thing and a very key feature of how they operate, how they live. So that part really excites me.
And of course, I'm sure you kept a close eye on the budget, and not just about what is impacting Cradle Fund per se, but generally speaking, how the budget is in terms of supporting the Madani economy, trying to reinvigorate the two sectors, which is the entrepreneur element, as well as the MSMEs and SMEs. But of course, the focus of today's conversation, of course, has always been on developing startups. What's your, I guess, key notes following the budget 2024?
The key takeaway from me when it comes to the Malaysian budget that was announced recently was the focus on developing startups and the startup ecosystem in general is given a lot of priority by the government. So the consistency of support from the government to the startup ecosystem is key for us to take note that that it signifies the potential that our startup ecosystem can actually give to the Malaysian country and its people. So why I say that? Because startup in general are the engine or the driver for innovation and economic impact. Okay, because all the new latest inventions and the high risk taking, trying to develop new technologies, going into new frontiers where no one would even dare to go into, startups are there. So that's their trait. That's what they like to do. That's the most exciting part about startups, actually. So by encouraging more of this, actually we can drive further technological advancement and ultimately economic welfare as well for the country of Malaysia.
Which leads it nicely for us to have this conversation on how you want to reach out to the community, how you can create roadshows that can actually enable potential startup founders to be activated. Let's talk more about the MYTukar NXT roadshow.
Yeah. So before that, I think I just had to take a few steps back. So back in 2021, November, the government of Malaysia launched the Startup Ecosystem Roadmap, Super, 2021-2030. So it's a 10-year roadmap with the main vision of placing Malaysia in the top 20 global startup ecosystem by 2030. So from there, one of the key interventions under there is MYStartup. So it is about creating that sustainable ecosystem to drive innovation and making sure that our startups are successful from an early stage to the later stage, right? So various programs have been launched under that since this past 2 years already, and we've done roadshows and things like that. So things have evolved from there as we go along. So MYStartup NXT is the latest offering from the MYStartup initiative. So it is a series of micro conferences that goes to all the states in Malaysia, throughout the country. So, I mean, people would know that startups generally in Malaysia will congregate more in the Klang Valley. But having said that, I think there's a lot of talent, there's a lot of potential coming up from other states in Malaysia as well. So by bringing what we can offer to all the other states to create that awareness, to unearth new potential startups from very different states, even Sabah, Sarawak, we go all over Malaysia. And, sharing the knowledge and the guidance, the insights from all the other founders, locally and even overseas as well. We bring them and we engage and interact with the entrepreneurs, the budding tech entrepreneurs in other states as well in Malaysia.
Is this an oversight, I suppose, the over-concentration of Klang Valley startups previously, and therefore this needs to be remedied? Is this the thing?
Well, I think it grew up from a natural growth. I mean, a lot of things tend to concentrate in the Klang Valley. I mean, the financial sector as well, and where the money is, people will come, right? But I think the decentralization of how we can grow or expand the startup ecosystem throughout the whole country is actually a very interesting thing, because I think each state has its own inherent expertise and capabilities and economic focus as well. So if you take Penang, for example, they're very good in E&E, electronics and electricals, right? And IT. So we can have a lot of startups that are focusing on in that area. And I mean, the recent announcement by the Sabah government about, setting up an aerospace ecosystem, a launchpad in Sabah, I think that's a very, very exciting move. Imagine if you can have a space technology ecosystem in east of Malaysia, and startups are definitely prime, for that, to really take advantage of that ecosystem. Because, suffice to say, we do have a number of Malaysian startups already looking into space technology. We actually have had at least 2 of our grant recipients who are into space tech.
The one that I want to focus on is things like this, right? The 20 million ringgit, for instance, has been allocated to stimulate research. There's about a few other million ringgit in terms of innovating R&D. How does all this kind of allocation is going to be pulled together, and where is Credo's role in trying to ensure that things are spent in the most efficient way?
Okay. In the budget, what's clearly stated is that 28 million ringgit that's been allocated for the single window under MYStartup, which aims to kind of like solve this age-old problem of navigating the startup ecosystem here in Malaysia. So if you can try to imagine the number of agencies out there in Malaysia that are providing funding and support to startups, and the amount of funds that are available all throughout Malaysia. Not just from the government agency, but even from private as well. So, and the kind of support, the kind of training, capacity building programs all throughout Malaysia. So if you were a new startup, it's difficult for you to navigate this. So that therein lies the idea behind the single window is actually to unite all this and present forth a single approach, to the startups of Malaysian startups to be able to access all the various funding opportunities and support programs that are made for them, and even incentive, even government programs as well. So,
how does this fit in the CIP Spark and CIP Sprint?
Exactly, that's the thing. So, all that will come under this single window. So, if I can take you on this, how it would look like. So, if you just wanted to start your own startup, typically, because I had the experience myself, my wife is also an entrepreneur. When she started out, it's difficult for her to know where should I go to. So for a startup, so how do I set my own company? How do I get my first funding? How do I engage my investors? How do I even get licenses to operate? Things like that. So we are trying to build this sort of like a curated approach to the platform. So when you come in, I am a startup, I want to start my own company, you just, you click and then you're taken to a journey and you're given all these options that are available for you at your current stage of growth, at your current level of operations.
Is it in operations or?
It is currently being built. So with the funding that's been allocated, so we are going to build towards that. So what we have right now, actually, the MYStartup portal that was launched 2 years ago, is currently, because it's in its early stage, we've only gone through like 2 phases of the development, right? So it started out with a data repository, so listing all the available fundings, all the available service providers, and the programs, events and things like that. But this takes it to a next level, actually. So imagine not just a curated journey, but also if you can impute some AI into it as well. So you just come in and the only thing that you have to do is probably just, I have a problem, how do I solve it?
Backhand wise, is it humans that are going to be resolving these kind of issues, or are you going to be running some sort of a large language model to support this?
Yeah, I mean, when we go to the AI level, definitely. But currently, for now, we have developers behind it, right? Just running the program to have that curated journey. But definitely, it is heading towards there.
Where
in the future.
Generative AI can support these kind of queries.
Yeah.
And what is the timeline on that?
We haven't had a hard timeline yet. We are developing it still because we are, because we want to make sure that whatever we do has an impact. So, the word of short sendiri too is not something that we are known for. So
currently, do you have enough people to get this, not just this, but many other Creole Fund initiatives running?
Yeah, so that's the thing on how we approach it. We're not looking into going resource heavy, but more on collaborating and leveraging off of each other's capabilities. So we will be working with all the other agencies and ministries and things like that.
Because there's a single window, I'm presuming you're the front.
Yeah.
And then behind you, there's going to be so many other stakeholders.
So many other stakeholders that we need to talk to.
So right now, you in the conversation with all these various stakeholders?
Exactly.
Who are they? Like, what, I mean, how do they come? In what shape or form?
Various. I mean, even the government agencies as well, the private parties as well, the private accelerators, the angel investors, the networks and things like that. We are bringing everybody within the ecosystem under one single platform.
One number that I took interest in the budget was the 1.5 billion, if I'm not mistaken, on
from
GLIX.
Yep.
In funding startups. It's very tricky because Cradle is in the early stage investment, even pre-seed, I would argue. That, by nature, GLIX and GLCs are risk averse. They don't take bets that recklessly, as opposed to, say, VCs. Their risk profile disables them from trying to try out new things. Maybe if they are trying to find out a solution on optimizing their own internal operations, maybe that fits in the investment thesis. Otherwise, it's very hard for them to venture out and try to bet on these young and upcoming founders, resulting in that 1.5 billion, in my hypothesis, might not necessarily be translated into disbursement or writing checks as much by the end of 31st December next year. Is my theory or is my thesis kind of on somewhere near reality?
I think that's pretty much reflective of how I would describe local investors public investors, right? So when they look at startup, they would immediately think that, why would I invest in something that's loss-making and just focusing on growing and growing and growing? So that actually defines startup. So startup is about innovation, a technology-driven company with growth, with a scalable business and a high growth strategy. So the focus is on growing with eventual profitability coming into play eventually at the end of it. Right? But in the beginning, it's all about growing, right? So naturally, they will be loss-making. And for investors to invest in something that's loss-making is something they are very, very much averse to, right? So that's where grants usually come in at a very early stage. So the government supports the creation and of early stage startups through our grants, right? So the CIP Spark as a ideation grant, and then you have the early commercialization grant with the CIP Sprint, and then after that we have the VCs coming in to support in the early years of the commercialization, the early revenue part, right? So that's where you get your pre-AA side, okay, and then B, C, D. But some companies, even at their C, they're still loss-making, but they're still growing exponentially. So I think when we go back to the fact that Khazanah and the other GLICs are actually allocating up to about 1.5 billion for investing in startups. I mean, we would typically be asking the question, are they really going to invest in startups? I think what we need to appreciate actually is not in the current state of the financial state of all these startups, be too hardly focused on that, but try to actually support the startup in their journey of growth towards what they can become in the future, which is a far larger entity that brings higher and greater value and returns at the end of it.
With the new restructuring of, say, for instance, Penjara Capital and MYTukar under Khazanah, you're going to, not you, I am going to assume that both Penjara as well as MYTukar is going to assume the risk profile of Khazanah. Again, depriving early stage startups of funds. Again, that's my hypothesis. Leaving only Cradle, the only bastion on early stage funding. Is that, again, another thesis that needs to be tackled?
For now, we don't have all the details yet about the move, whether MYTukar and Penjara going into Khazanah, how would it look like, how would it operate, would their mandate change? But for who they are now and what they do now, they do invest in the early parts of the growth of the startup. So, okay,
not just that, but they are fund of funds as well. Yeah.
True, but the fund of fund invests in startups, right? So not startups who are actually necessarily profit making, but actually do have value in their business and their growth. So I think for now, I think it's safe to say that they will continue on until, if there's anything else that changes.
Okay, now let's go back to the road show that is going to travel around the country. The aim of MYStartup NXT is, of course, to foster some sort of impact in terms of trying to find support from the country. I'm trying to see where the focus is in terms of geography. You mentioned Sabah and Sarawak, for instance. Do you feel that Sarawak has a potential in developing a startup ecosystem, and do you feel that that is a possibility for you to help flourish that potential in Sarawak? And how about Sabah then?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a lot of activities over there. There's a lot of interest over in Sabah Sarawak to create that ecosystem.
I just came back from Kuching for the WCIT.
Yeah.
It blew my mind.
Exactly.
Not just the WCIT itself, but Sarawak potential. And of course Sabah lah.
Exactly. I mean, we even have startups from Sarawak that we've actually supported, and they've actually gone beyond their state boundaries. They've actually gone overseas as well. Even there's one startup from Sabah as well called Halal that's actually gone over to Australia. So that's why we think that there's a lot of potential outside of Klang Valley to unearth new startups. And I think that the reciprocal effort and push from the state government is something that we should really take note of and support. And encourage more technology startups to come up and develop the states. Together, we develop the whole country.
And of course, what would be some of the key areas of industries you think is going to come out from Sabah and Sarawak?
Well, I think I mentioned earlier that Sabah about the space technology. I think that's really, really interesting. Sarawak, there's a lot of AI, high-tech kind of startup as well. I mean, oil and gas typically is a natural resource. Sorry?
Hydrogen?
Hydrogen, yes, very much. There's a big push for hydrogen there in Sarawak as well. EV, yeah, and AI is something that I see a lot of as well in Sarawak. Because, I mean, I say that because one of the more prominent startup that we have found in Sarawak is called Neon AI. So what they do is they use AI technology to detect road imperfections and potholes, saving countless of hours and resources for JKR Sarawak to detect. I mean, imagine the network of roads that they have in Sarawak, and to be able to ensure, there's, the quality of roads there. I think is a very good solution that's been brought up indigenously by a startup from Sarawak.
Oh yeah? What about Sabah specifically?
Sabah, I think I mentioned earlier, was the Core Halal, a company called SingSoft. The product is called Halal. So what they do is that they manage your halal certification, ensuring that you meet all the regulations and things like that. But having said that, if you know or if you're aware that the halal industry is a huge industry and there's high potential, especially for Malaysian companies to really tap into, because the halal certification of Malaysia is actually quite referred to overseas as well. And then if we were to be able to pioneer this technology and bring it out overseas, is something that is really truly in demand.
Under the National Industry Master Plan, and as elucidated by the Prime Minister in the budget presentation, of high growth, high value sectors or HGHV sectors, you're looking at startups that is going to be driving some of it. Of course, GLICs and GLCs are going to be driving the more matured kind of solutioning in these sectors, especially in E&E and in EV development. Do you feel that there is a lot of potential in you doing this MYStartup NXT roadshow? You're going to be able to unearth potential startups that could deliver the high value, high growth sectors?
Well, startup by definition, high growth, definitely. So we are very, very confident, and the technology that they come up with is usually very, very innovative and will definitely create high value. And we are very confident, especially when the state governments, I mean, all throughout Malaysia, are actually looking into building new startup from a grassroots level, even from the education. So the startup ecosystem is not just about, starting from a founder trying to create a startup. It actually goes before that as well, from the university graduates. So the what do you call that? The interests, from the budding university students to actually look at technology entrepreneurship as a career choice.
What about matured individuals? Do you feel that there is a value in them trying to try out startup as well?
There's a lot of that as well. And I do have an example of a corporate that's actually encouraging their own internal talent, mature talent, or individuals, right? So to take what they have learned professionally and actually come up with or create their own startup.
But the risk is, of course, they have a lot of liabilities that is straddled that would disable them from being as aggressive as a young individual. I get that. But a matured founder would be able to draw upon his or her experiences that has been garnered over the past 10, 15, 20 years in the corporate setup. Where do you feel the value is in terms of them trying to do or deliver a solution, but at the same time trying to see, that their liabilities or their commitments can be maintained while they pursue a very, I guess, in a way, risky endeavor, being a founder?
Well, that's where we have the funding and support from the government at the initial stage of the creation of a startup. That's where our grants will come in, our facilitation, our capacity development, our programs that we have actually under the CIP Spark and Sprint, as well as the MYStartup programs that are there to help all these budding entrepreneurs, young and old, to create and grow their startup onwards.
Final area of exploration I want to go through with you is in terms of the funding life cycle. Somebody in the can't mention his name, but somebody in the governmental agency shared the whole idea of how in Southeast Asia, not necessarily just Malaysia, but in Southeast Asia, there's a lot of broken stages when it comes to funding, especially in Series B, maybe even in Series A. There's a lot of money coming in into seed and pre-seed. And there's a lot of VCs that is actually coming in with small funds, maybe $2-3 million funds, and then they're trying to help support these kind of early stage. But when you hit growth stage, there's not enough support there. Do you share this kind of sentiment?
Well, I guess the famous example of that was Grab, right? So they actually started out with us with a grant when they were MyTaxi, and then as they grew bigger and it became Grab, and then it was difficult for them to actually secure a higher amount of funding. So they went over to Singapore and then they start, doing the IPO. But But having said that, right? I mean, there are two parts to this, right? So when people say that there's a lot of concentration of funds at the early stage compared to later on, but when I look at the report from this organization called Startup Genome, we actually compares the startup ecosystems globally.
Startup Genome?
Startup Genome.
Okay.
It's based in America.
Okay.
So they publish annual reports on how ecosystems around the world compare to each other.
Okay.
So it's kind of our reference
okay.
As to our aspiration to become the top 20 global.
Yes.
Yeah. So right now Malaysia is in the emerging ranking category, 21st to 30 category. But anyway, so in that report, it states that Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia for that matter, against the global average in terms of early stage funding, we are quite far behind. Even at the early stage funding.
Compared to our neighbours?
Compared to our neighbours are far higher. Singapore is higher, Jakarta is higher.
Wow.
Yes.
Even maybe Ho Chi Minh?
No, I mean in terms of ASEAN ranking, we are actually third.
Oh, behind Jakarta
Singapore,
and
Jakarta, us, and then you have Thailand, Bangkok, Manila, and
the rest.
Yeah. So yeah, but having said that, early stage funding is important, right? So we need to build that critical mass before that, to gain the more startups that we can get, because the popular saying that out of 10 startups 9 will fail, right?
Yeah.
So that's why critical mass is important.
Yeah.
So early stage funding is important to make sure that we have enough to push on through to the next level of growth. So I think, to me, when there's more of that and there's more of the high potential startups at the later stage, I'm very sure investors will come in and support. So we need to create the right environment for the investors to come in and support.
And what are the 3-4 things that you feel is that kind of right environment?
I think, we have to facilitate them to come in. We got to make sure it's easy for them to bring the money in, for them to invest in our Malaysian startup and support the startups financially. Yeah. I think
so the CGT announcement that was made before, the Prime Minister did say that for exclusions for capital gains tax for startups, you mentioned it in passing. I don't know how it's going to be translated into policy.
Yep. I think we should just we should wait for the actual guideline to be released before we make any comments on that. But I do take note of people are already talking about it anyway. So there's a lot of interest in that. But I think we will try to make it as best of an environment for investors to allow investments into startups.
Fine. Final thing, if people want to learn more about the roadshow that you're doing for MYStartup NXT, how do they go about it?
Right. Simply, just go to www.mystartup.gov.my. There you can get all the information that you need to know about the ecosystem. It's not just about the events, the upcoming events, but also the available funds that are there, the investors that are there. We have investors listed and all the other services that are available for startups in Malaysia. And if you want to know anything about any of the startups in Malaysia as well, be it in biotech, agritech, or AI, you just want to know about them or you want to communicate with them, they're all there, they're all listed. Just give it a visit.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. That was Norman Matthew Van Hakke, the acting group CEO of Cradle Fund. To learn more, just head off to the website that you mentioned earlier. You can also find more resources like this on our website at astro.com. Do stay with us to find out more latest information on the world of startup investments, entrepreneurship, business, and most importantly, high growth, high value sectors. We talk about it all the time here on the channel. My name is Ibrahim, Sani. Catch you in the next one.
dalam kepayahan yang mereka harungi.
Actually, today has been just very emotional. I don't know why lah.
This is not an excuse, okay?
Karena ini adalah kompetisi.
Mereka tekad maju ke hadapan.
You can do it, girl.
Dan membuktikan kehebatan mereka. All Stars Gegavaganza, Ahad 9 malam di Astro Ria dan Astro Go.
But if you close your eyes, close your eyes.
This is Planet Earth 3.
Untuk kita belajar dari episod ini supaya tidak berlaku lagi pada masa akan datang.
Kita perlu menjalankan dasar penguasaan ini secara berterusan.
Jadi adakah YB Yakin ini sebagai satu magnet kepada pelabur dan juga memberi keyakinan kepada rakyat?
Jadi kalau kita berjaya lakukan dengan baik, saya yakin sebenarnya kita akan dapat melihat laba itu naik mendadak.
Agenda Awani setiap hari di Astro Awani dan Astro Go.
Malaysia's national debt rose to over R1 trillion in 2022, a 10.2% increase in the previous year.
Proton and Chinese car maker Zhejiang Geely Holding Group is looking to set up an electric vehicle factory in Thailand.
Indonesia has again denied that the hazardous haze was crossing borders.
The government is considering reviving the national service training program with youth to undergo army training for 45 days.
Saya sayangkan awak. Hai sayang.
Saya rasa saya tak dapat datang malam ni. Saya tahu malam ni sangat-sangat penting bagi awak. Betul, saya tak tipu. Jadi Samira tak jealous ke?
Saya dengan Samira dah putus.
Saya tak sangka awak boleh buat macam ni kat saya. Macam mana saya nak start balik hidup saya macam ni? You Haji Dorothy kan?
Jamie. Jap, where are you going?
My famous ex-boyfriend, Isnin hingga Kamis 10 malam.
I think I know you. You ex-girlfriend Hak Zuhal kan?
Di Astro Ria dan On Demand.
Aku rasa kau bukan seorang je yang dia kacau kat uni ni.
You open-minded kan?
Saya nak awak rakam video untuk saya.
Saya janji saya takkan save.
Should I do further?
Must be something wrong somewhere kan?
Tak malu punya jantan.
Suka hati aku lah, Gobal.
Riot Rebel with a Cause. Stream episod baharu setiap Jumaat On Demand dan Astro Premier. Inilah masanya. Bolehkah anda merasai tekanannya? Takutkan kegagalan? Dibayangi kehebatan pasukan jiran dan impian yang disepadam. Arena ini hanya untuk yang berani. Manchester Derby. Premier League secara langsung di Astro.
Kami digelar 6 jam sebabnya kami sangat akrab dan mungkin kami sedikit nakal kot masa tu.
Budak-budak tim kriket ni ada masalah disiplin kan? Ponting, rosak harta benda, mencuri.
Kita benci kriket. Cikgu yang paksa kita main.
Kata kau semua tolong saya. Saya janji lepas menang. Kau semua tak payah aduh dalam tim kriket saya.
Sedar atau tidak, dunia kini sedang menghadapi krisis tenaga elektrik. Sejak dari tahun 2021 hingga pertengahan 2022, kita menyaksikan kesan ketara kenaikan harga elektrik di seluruh dunia. Di Malaysia juga tidak terkecuali. Tetapi rakyat tidak pernah merasa sebarang kenaikan kerana subsidi yang diberikan berulang kali. Namun, sampai bilakah kita mampu bertahan Sebagai pengguna, kita boleh membantu negara menangani krisis tenaga ini dengan menggunakan elektrik secara bijak dari sekarang.